o'clock. There we go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our November Planning Advisory Committee meeting. Appreciate your attendance. So without further ado, we'll get right into the agenda here. And do we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest of general nature there regarding any of the items tonight? None noted. Thank you. And I'll ask for an approval of the agenda as presented. Mayor Harrison, Councillor McHugh, any questions regarding them? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And now I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the October 19th Planning Advisory Committee meeting. Councillor Kasovas and Mr. Brown. Any errors, omissions, or questions regarding those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. The public meetings are done as prescribed under the Planning Act. And the public meetings are conducted as prescribed by Section 3413 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended for 1 official plan amendment application affecting land in the Sydney Ward, 1 red line amendment to the draft plan of subdivision application affecting land in the Sydney Ward, 1 zoning bylaw amendment application affecting land in the Sydney Ward, and 1 zoning bylaw amendment application affecting land in the Trenton Ward, and 1 zoning bylaw amendment application affecting land in the Murray Ward. The meetings will be conducted in the following manner for each application. First, I'll identify the application being considered, and then I'll ask planning staff to outline the application being considered. Then ask if there are any members of the public who have registered in advance to attend and participate in the meeting, and have any questions or comments regarding the application. If there are no public comments or questions, I will ask the committee if they have any questions or comments. Once the committee's questions have been addressed, the committee will consider and vote on each application. If you wish to provide comments, please state your name and address for the record prior to addressing the committee. This committee has been delegated the responsibility to conduct public meetings as prescribed under the Planning Act. A full report of the meeting's proceedings will be submitted to City Council on Wednesday, December the 1st, 2023. Council will make the decision on each stated application. Anyone other than the applicant who wishes to receive further notice of Council's decision on each application must submit a written request for notice of Council's decision to the Director of Planning and Development Services. I'll now ask the Director of Planning and Services, please advise the committee on how notice of each of these applications were given.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Notice of the application has been considered this evening. We're given in keeping with the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, by first-class mail on October 27th, 2023, and posting of signs on the subject properties on the same date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move right into the first application. Is 7.1 Staff Report 23-116 PD. It's a red line amendment to the draft plan of subdivision application. The owner is GCL Developments, Inc. Agent is Arcadis. Location is Stonecrest Estates. The file number is D12/S73/01. Katie, would you like to address this application, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the City received a red line amendment application to increase the number of lots for a draft plan approved subdivision known as Stonecrest Estates. The subject lands form phases 5 and 6 of Stonecrest Estates, which received draft plan approval from the City of Quinte West in April of 2014. To date, phases 1, 2, and 3 of Stonecrest Estates have been completed. Phases 4, 5, and 6 of the subdivision have not yet been registered. Originally, phases 5 and 6 of Stonecrest Estates consisted of 52 lots for single detached dwellings, as the subdivision was designed in a manner that accommodated open roadside ditches for stormwater management purposes. However, the proposed red line amendment incorporates a change to an urban type cross section having curb, gutter, and storm sewer to collect and convey stormwater within the subject lands. The proposed amendments to phases 5 and 6 of Stonecrest Estates would result in 96 lots for single detached dwellings, a stormwater management pond block, a stormwater management pond access block, a wetland block, and a right-of-way block. Overall, the general layout of the subdivision remains the same. However, the road along the north end has been relocated further north. A stormwater management area has been added north of the wetland at the south end of the site, and the provincially significant wetland in the northwest corner has been appropriately identified and protected. The proposed red line amendment would make efficient use of the subject lands by providing an extra 44 lots for single detached dwellings while still being within the allowable net density for low density residential developments. Several reports were submitted in support of the redline amendment application, including an environmental impact study, a noise and vibration impact study, a stormwater management report, and a planning justification report. There is a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application that proposes to rezone the subject lands in order to recognize the reconfiguration of phases 5 and 6. Overall, the application meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none, anyone in opposition or have general questions regarding this application, please come forward and state your name and address, please. We have to be at the podium because we're on camera here and it's being recorded on YouTube, so we can't hear you from the audience.
My name's Dinah Medford.
Thank you.
I live at 66 Stonecrest Boulevard. So right now, I guess you have it in your notes, you can look it up. We have about 102 homes on Stonecrest Boulevard, and we have about 6 homes on Edge Rock. We have one entry point, one exit point. There's Burns Avenue, which is the side of us. They have gates across them for emergency vehicles only. Let's talk about wintertime. When they come to plow the roads, all the snow goes against those gates. You can't get out. I'm at the top of that street. If there's ever an emergency, how am I going to get out? So when I bought my house, I was told that the lands up there were going to be for custom homes. Great, no problem. They were going to have a certain entry level. All of a sudden, they're doubling their homes there. Why are they doubling their homes there? And I question, there was Merchant homes involved, and there was Gertzma's homes involved. Merchant's backed out now. It's Gertzma. So all of a sudden, Gertzma can't do these custom homes because Merchant's out. So they're going to, what, put a whole bunch of homes in there? So how are these people going to get out? We have one park, 4 swings. You're going to put 80 more homes up there. You're going to have how many more kids? How are the buses going to get in? How are they going to get out? We have no exit points. Where are you going to put another entry point here? What are you going to wait for? A disaster happened here? You're going to wait for a fire that I can't get out of my house, an ambulance can't get up? There's no entry or exit points here. You're looking at the streets. Look at the plan. Look at the plan. Where do people get out here? You can look at Burns Avenue. All Burns is cordoned off. It's all fences. So how are these houses going to work? And then where do you go from here? Where do you go with infrastructure? Where do you go with schools? So you're going to have school buses coming up here. Where are these kids going to go to school? What park are they going to play in? We have 4 swings in our park. The park's always busy. Where are these people going to go? And how are you going to build our infrastructure around our development here? We don't have any stores. We have to drive 20 minutes to Trenton, we have to drive 20 minutes to Belleville, or we got to go up. What are you going to do for our infrastructure around these houses here? Your hospitals are overloaded, nobody can get doctors, anything else, and you keep piling these houses in here. How is this going to help the community? But my biggest fear is, how am I going to get out if there's ever an emergency? You tell me, with this plan, how are the people going to get out of this neighborhood? If there's ever an emergency, there's one exit point. That's it.
Okay, we'll have staff maybe address that. I know those gated sites are supposed to be for emergency exits, but I believe that some of them are supposed to be open for regular open
They're
through
not
traffic.
open. There's no.
I know
there's
they're not,
nothing
ma'am,
open.
but this
there's
isn't
one
unique.
exit point.
Yeah.
One.
I know.
Just simply one.
Yeah.
For 300 houses here, and you're going to put what? Another 100 more, and you're going to have how many more buses coming up here for school kids? Because tell me, who's going to buy a house if you don't have kids? You're either downsizing, you're going to be an elderly person, so you're going to need an ambulance, or you're going to need a bus for your kids to go to school. So you tell me how you're going to get in and out of here.
Okay, staff, would you like to address those issues if you could? I think that's been looked at and discussed, so.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair. So yes, there is one main access in there, and you pointed out yourself. Basically, really, I think the issue that you've raised that I have made a note of that I'm concerned about is if the emergency access is blocked at times, and we can certainly work with both the developer.
Blocked it sometimes. It's
Well,
always blocked.
Please
It's
let me
locked.
finish.
There's
Please-
no exit.
Please let me finish, ma'am.
Can
right?
There's no
you let
exit.
him finish
Please
his
let me finish.
response?
That's an emergency access in the event that the main primary access is cleared. The entire subdivision was based on that one primary access with a secondary emergency access out to Burns Avenue. If during seasonal times the snow blocks that, then we'll make sure that that's cleared. We'll work with our Public Works Department. But basically, that's there for emergency access. That's what it's there for. That's the way the subdivision was designed.
Well, I hope I don't have a heart attack before that emergency access is cleared. I really hope I don't. Really, that's not acceptable. So you're going to tell me when there's a huge snowstorm and they push all the snow up there and we can't get out? Or you tell me when there's a fire halfway down the street and they tell us to evacuate, how do we get out?
Right.
How do we get out?
Yeah, certainly that's something working with our. So if the issue is that there's snow there, so the gates would be opened in the event of an emergency by emergency services, right? If the happen to be blocked by snow, that would be cleared by the city. What I will speak to Public Works operations crew about is if they should not be piling snow against that emergency access. That
Why
makes
are
perfect
those
sense.
exits blocked? Why are they blocked from Burns Avenue to our street? Because Burns Avenue fought your committee for years, and the only reason this development got built is because you acquiesced to what they wanted. And now you're going to put us at jeopardy again for somebody else to build 50 more homes than what they applied for in the beginning.
So, Mr. Chair.
And my question
Mr.
is,
Chair, Mr.
why
Chair-
did Merchant back out? They were supposed to be luxury homes. I would never have bought my home up there if I knew that they were going to throw in 90 homes that were going to be low substandard homes. Why would I have bought my home there? I bought my home there knowing that my property value would probably increase because they promised me they were building luxury homes up there and they were going to do everything that they were going to do. Look at Merchant's plans. Look at Gertzman's plans 2 years ago, what they were doing up there. And all of a sudden they want to jam in 50 more homes because Merchant backed out. Gertzman can't afford to do the luxury homes and nobody's going to bow down to them.
Brian?
Yeah, a couple of things.
Let Brian finish his.
Yeah, so I think the one point I want to make note of is the design, the layout, and including the emergency access. That all gets reviewed by emergency services, fire department, etc. It's not just through the planning department, it goes through a range of different city departments who have all signed off on that design. From that perspective, we'll certainly get that note to operations in relation to ploughing the snow. That certainly shouldn't be happening. Comment on a few other things, right? Your concerns around the increase in the scale of development. This is a situation that all municipalities are dealing with now. Our goal, and it's been a goal for quite some time, but our increasing goal in this particular economic climate and housing climate is to maximise the use of land and make sure the land is used to its highest yield, if you like, with respect to housing. So generally, we would be supportive as a municipality within reason for increases in density. As Ms Whitehead mentioned, even with the changes to this is still well within the categories of low-density housing. It does not expand that. I know it may have been a different concept of development that was spoken to you when you at the time of purchase of your home. I can't speak to that. That's not municipal control. But municipalities are effectively striving now to make best use of land and to raise densities where that's possible.
I appreciate all that. Tell me how the hell we get out of our street when there's an emergency. And you're putting another 100 homes up at the top of the street and we only have one exit point. Please tell me how you're going to rectify that.
To Mr. Chair, I believe I answered that question. There is an emergency
No, you
access.
haven't answered that question. Is there another road?
There is no other road proposed through this
Oh, there's no
development,
other road proposed. So they're all going to come down Stonecrest Boulevard.
That's correct.
Right. Another 100 houses. Amongst another 200 houses are going to come Stonecrest Boulevard, and we have no other way to get out or in.
Again, Mr. Chair, when the roads are designed and laid out, all roads have a threshold of how much traffic they can handle and how the intersections will operate at different traffic standards. So even with this change, the internal roads that have been designed are well within standards and will meet that level of traffic
You know
requirement.
what? I hate to be here the day you have a goddamn emergency. I hate to be here when there's a fire and people can't get out of the road because you've got 500 houses that have one exit point. That's not the law. That's wrong. And if you guys all want to sit here and think that's okay, you're whatever. Whatever. One exit point. One exit point for all these homes, that's wrong. Wrong.
Well, ma'am, I can tell you a lot of the other developments we got on the
I
go.
don't care about the other
I'm just telling you,
developments.
they have the same criteria and so.
What are you doing with your city?
Okay.
Look at it. Wait for the disasters and deal with them.
Okay, thank you.
She doesn't want to listen.
Anyway, is there anyone else wishes to address this application with opposition or general questions?
Just general questions.
Your name, please, and
Janet
address.
Seebeck. I'm at 95 Burns Avenue, so I'm in the other side that doesn't have the capacity to take the cars. They already had problems with water issues when the trucks used to come down there all the time trying to get into the other subdivision. And I wouldn't want to see that opened up for that reason, because there's too many cars, it's too long a street with no stop signs all the way. The Stonecrest area is already a racing track going up and down. So I don't know how you're going to accommodate at least 400 cars going up and down every day on top of what you already have. Beyond that, I'm questioning the actual layout of where that plan is. I don't know if anyone's been to the subdivision, because some of that area is an elevated area, and I don't know if this new street, the two new streets that are going in there, are on the top of that area, or if they're tearing down the side of the hill to put them in there. And I don't think we know that.
Staff, do you have any?
We actually have the project engineer here with us, our representative. I think maybe they can speak better to that in terms of what's intended as far as site excavations or design. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Please come forward.
Hello, Jennifer Diaz with Ainley Group. So with regards to the grading, generally speaking, you intend, when you're working on the plan, to generally follow the same topography as the land is there. So I'm not exactly sure where you're referring to the hill per se, but generally speaking, the proposed grading plan will match the general intent.
Is probably a 100 and 150 foot elevation that's all part of the butts onto the school
Right,
forest there.
right. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, the grading will be designed so that it is matching the general intent of the existing grading that's there.
So you're gonna have hills going up, or
I
roads
haven't-
going up the steep hill to get there.
Well, we'll work with it, yes. Like, we'll be working with the plans to make it work. There will be some cut, there will be some filling area, that's just,
So what will keep this land from, the rest of it from coming down? Because I'm sure it'll be clear cut.
again, it's designed, well, it's designed to standards, and the standards, have limitations on what you can do, and how much the grade can be. So all of that will be implemented, and there will be erosion control implemented where it's required.
Mr. Chair, I think one thing I could add to that as well is just for members of the public. The position that this is at right now is at the draft plan stage. So when the draft plan's approved, the next stage, that doesn't get clear approval to start construction. They have to go through an engineering stage. So all of the engineering details have to come and have to be satisfied before the development can actually happen. So all of that detail around how the engineering of the site will be finalised is yet to come.
And is there another meeting at that
Yep.
point, or it's just fine, you've already approved the whole thing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it comes back to the committee for a decision item, not for a public meeting, but for a decision item on the final plan.
Can I ask how many people have actually been to this site?
But I will say, even though it's a closed meeting compared to this one, there is a public input at every one planning meeting, so you could ask your questions or concerns prior as you'll see when we get down even into this one, there is a public input, which you can ask any question, not necessarily about this or anything in planning or whatever. So when those decision items come up, there is still a portion for you to have an input.
Well, maybe this question would be more appropriate for that time, but we've got 300 houses in this development currently. You've got another 200 coming in at least to the other area, and we have maybe 15 trees that have been planted after that whole area was removed of trees. Is there nothing that can be done in a time when we're worried about climate change to insist that a builder pass on the cost of a tree to the owners of the new house so that we can replace some of these trees that are being taken down when these forests are cleared?
Brian, I know we've had this question from other people. I know some people, I should say, some developers leave it till the end and they're done, and then they have planted trees, but you may want to address that,
There
please.
are no development trees there.
No.
I know,
No,
but-
yeah, the lady's right. There's no, as committee know this has come up before. We don't currently have a tree planting policy or a street tree policy, in the city that requires a new builder to build a tree on the street, a tree on the front yard, on the property. What we try and do is work with the developers to do planting within parkland blocks, any other environmental blocks, things like that, rather than on the individual lot.
Okay, so they did that.
Well,
Go
that's
ahead.
something we can ask for again in the final designs, and we can ask for landscaping plans and additional planning if it's warranted. The one thing I would say about the lot trees is that lot trees are great, and as you say, very important for the climate. But one of the other issues is they also, as they mature and get larger, and as our development gets more compact, they create significant issues with infrastructure in the longer term. So municipalities are dealing with that challenge between providing new trees within new trees and protecting infrastructure so that yourselves don't bear the burden of enormous infrastructure costs down the line. Yeah.
One tree will not put a person, if they can afford that house, one tree and trimming that tree or having to cut that tree down. I moved in 3 years ago and had to take 11 trees down partially because of the clear cutting from behind that killed all the roots to a lot of the trees, but also because of the ash borer. So I think that's not the major thing. I think we've got to look that you've got to get up to date on your planning with keeping a green environment. You can't keep doing this and taking all the forests down. And if a person doesn't water their tree and the tree dies, then charge them for a new one. Right now, the developer was asked to put in, I guess it was from previous time, they had to put in an area where they landscaped it. So they put it on the corner of the park, which is small, so now they've got a weed bed with bushes this big, that most of them have died now. The weeds are this big too, so it's hard to find them. And then they cleared an area beside the road heading up to the entrance into the new area, tore a whole bunch of trees down to put maybe 15 little trees in there. You may ask them to do that, but what they do and what you expect to see, they took more trees out to put these expected trees in. And most of them are just shrubs. They're not trees.
Well, basically, they're all gone now because the four-wheelers ran.
And as Brian says, the other thing we think about when they put them between your front yard and the edge of the road or right-of-way is the roots getting into our water and sewer and lines and everything. So they do think about that and
So
the
perhaps the
underground
densities
hydro
too.
and everything that's in there. So
Yeah.
that has to be thought about too. There's no sense
Yeah.
seeing a nice maple get up to a certain size and then you have to destroy it because it's intersecting into some of the servicing. So
It's
it
better
has
to
its
have had a
pluses
tree
and
with
minuses.
oxygen for
Yeah.
25 years than to have nothing at all.
Yeah.
With an extra 200 tailpipes going through the community, emitting pollution.
Well, I guess the worst part is, and I think Brian tried to touch on it, we're trying to maximize because there's a shortage of housing.
I understand
And,
that,
I
but-
mean, the people that are established here don't like to see the countryside changed, and I think that's a hard call, that's for sure.
We're not
but-
calling against the development. The development is given. We just want some say into the way it's done. My concern is that hill going up, and if there's going to be any trees left on it to hold it together. If you hike through there, you can see that it's already, it
Yeah.
falls apart on some areas because of that.
As Brian says, there'll be an engineering brought back design, and we can take a look at it then and see how it looks after that. As far as grading, and they'll have to do stormwater management, it'll have to be all looked at so it doesn't cause any erosion or anything to any budding properties or cause anybody grief down the hill, or if you want to speak. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Please come forward. State your name and address, please.
Hi, everybody. Marion Henson. I live 163 Burns. I've noticed that my concern, my question right now is about water. I've noticed that the water level, if I'm running a tap, for example, now and again it'll go down to a trickle, and then it'll go back to normal, and this happens a lot, and I was wondering what kind of, like, I'm concerned about the water, and you add another however many homes to the north, is that gonna be worse for me in our house? And I don't know if anyone else in my street, yeah. So looks like a common problem, but any comment on that, or?
Well, Brian, we want to address that. I'm sure our Public Works looks into capacities, and if there's
Yeah.
something wrong there, they can probably look into it.
Yeah, I don't know, have you made any complaints directly to or comments back directly to the city on
No,
your
not yet,
current
no.
issue? Yeah, that's not been brought up in any part of the process. Definitely the proposal, including the proposal for the additional units, has all been run through Public Works, Water Department and Sewer Department. So the capacity and pressure is there for both servicing all of the units. Should have no impact on existing residents, either on Burns Avenue or existing residents in Stonecrest. But we can certainly take that back, and I would strongly recommend calling into City Hall to the Water Department and just recording that's what you experience. It might be something very localised, but we've been assured that there will be capacity and pressure both for water service and for firefighting and that kind of thing. So.
Yes, so, sorry, back to traffic, and I know it's an issue we've already discussed, but on Highway 2, do you not think that there should be a traffic light? Like, I know this is probably a different department that deals with it, but just getting out onto Highway 2 from Burns is tricky. Stonecrest is trickier because there's more homes, and then you add all these new ones. Is it been considered that a traffic light go in there? And it's so close to a school, and it's an 80. I ask any of you if you'd like to just sit at that intersection and watch the cars that go 120 along that highway, and with school buses, and it can get kind of scary. So I'm a little concerned about that aspect of traffic.
Brian, do you want to address the traffic study? And
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the overall development, traffic analysis is done, and the traffic analysis determines what road network and what size of roads can accommodate the scale of development and make sure they match. And that also looks at intersections, and it basically determines where and when you need stop signs, where and when you need traffic signals. This development does not warrant a traffic signal intersection onto Highway 2. It's well below that. Now, you know, I think it's fair to say that if you judge the traffic warrants based on how long you may have to wait to exit an intersection, they're probably much more than you would like to wait at an intersection. So usually these types of developments fall within that threshold, but this certainly doesn't warrant a traffic light at that intersection. And the other thing is, traffic lights, additional traffic lights on Highway 2 is a different question as well, because that's the main artery, and so that is under review, or not under a current review, but that's always under review by the city as one of the major arteries as to what type of infrastructure is needed to manage traffic on Highway 2. But this development does not warrant a traffic at that signal at that intersection. Yeah, I think, and I think that's another thing that's that tough thing to deal with, where everything's based on the Highway Traffic Act, and so people speeding on that road is a policing issue, is a management issue, rather than the traffic.
It's a speed limit because you have an 80 speed limit in front of a school, and then once you hit Loyalist Parkway, it drops to 60, and you're in industrial. There's nothing but businesses there. So you're in front of a residential area and a school, and you have 80 traffic limit, and then you go to Loyalist, and then it's 60 and 50, and it's all industrial.
But
Explain that to me.
That's the city of Belleville too, and we have no say over what they.
Oh, so explain to me exactly, because I'd really like to understand this.
Ma'am, it's not a free-for-all. It's not a free-for-all. Have you had your questions answered? Okay.
Yes,
Please come to the podium.
yes, please.
My name's Andy Elliott. I'm at 18 Stonecrest Boulevard. I have a couple of questions, and certainly to Mr. Jourdain, is it? Yes. So as you've heard some of the people speaking here about many issues, but certainly what we're talking about right now is traffic flow, traffic density, and there's no doubt, I mean, I saw a show of hands of some of the members here who've said they've been to the development. I know the mayor's been there. I've seen you there a few times over the years. There's no doubt that getting in and out of that development now, the way the density is now, is tricky. It is tricky. It's 4-lane highway, it's 80 kilometers an hour, and there's a bend. There's a bend coming from the east. And I'm 62 years old. I've been driving since I was 16 years old. I consider myself to be a decent, conscientious driver. There's times in the day I'm white-knuckled. I'm white-knuckled trying to get out of there. By the time you look right and see, you look left, it's clear. You look right, it's clear. The cars are coming around that corner from the east, and they're not doing 80 kilometers an hour. Now, I understand what you said. You can't control people speeding, but pretty much everybody in this room knows that Old Highway 2 at 80 kilometers an hour, if you're not doing 100, okay, you got people basically on your bumper. So most people are doing somewhere between 80 and 100. And by the time you look left again, those cars are on you. I believe there was a pretty serious accident right to just to the east of Stonecrest. I'm thinking about 4 months ago. Am I correct? My wife and I moved into the subdivision in the early development, so we're almost 7 years now. And we were saying at that time, like, that was a dangerous situation. I believe about 3 or 4 years ago, might have been 5 now, there was an election. There were councilors coming around. We brought these issues up. We were told they would be looked at. We never really heard much about it. I don't want to stand here and sound dramatic, but it's already tricky. Now we're talking about, if I'm correct, we're doubling the size of the number of dwellings in this development. Obviously, would logically double the number of vehicles coming in and out. We have done a rough calculation, and we figure that per unit we're looking at, I know it sounds unusual, approximately 2.5 cars per home. And I believe most of the homes, probably half of what's there now, were built to accommodate 2 vehicles, 2 to 3 vehicles maybe, a lot of them with 1 vehicle, but as most of the people in this room would know, been there, would know that there's many cars parked on the street. People are parking on, some people actually parking on their lawns. There are Airbnbs in the subdivision now. And quite a few of the houses are rental units. So the homeowners themselves, it seems to us, some of them who are renting their homes are not taking a lot of responsibility for the impact that their tenants have on that part of the community. So, I mean, if you do the math and it ends up in that area has 1,000 homes times 2.5, that's 2,500 cars. That's a lot of cars. And it's extremely dangerous. Now, one thing that we talked about many years ago, and we really cannot understand this, is that, understanding that traffic lights could be, a high bar, and of course, there is a set of traffic lights at Aikens and Highway 2, which isn't far. But that 80-kilometer speed limit, notwithstanding the fact that it goes by 3 schools. Now, I think it would be understandable that if all those 3 schools had access, entry and exit all off of Aikens, and I believe 2 of the 3 schools do, but the high school doesn't. The high school exits and enters onto that highway.
I can tell you the buses and that go in the back part through by the public schools, because I drove school bus in there many years.
So there is a way in and out off of
That's where
Aikens?
the school buses unload, is at the back of Bayside.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the school buses.
No,
talking
but I'm
about
just saying the
staff,
children.
parents, students.
But
what have
they
you.
do have a public, so-called public access at the front, I know that. But I'm saying the
Yes.
bulk of the students are taken in through the back
Yes.
of all the
Yes.
schools.
So am I wrong? Is it not unusual for there to be an 80-kilometer speed limit past a public school where the exit and entrance is to that school? It just seems, I mean, honestly, I challenge anybody to tell me where there's another school in this district that has that situation. I mean, honestly. I could be totally wrong, but we've been there 7 years, and like I said, it's a scary situation. There's, I know, and there's some elderly people that are living in that development too, and like I said, I've been driving many years, and it is tricky. It is tricky.
But I can tell you, sir, we do have a committee here that looks at speed limits, and there is a process. If you get enough people that want to have it reviewed, you can bring it to the committee and then see where it goes. It has input from the OPP. There's
sir.
public people set on it before it even comes to council for approval or whatever. So there is a process.
I understand that, and I had that conversation with a counselor that I had in my home about 5 years ago, and what he told me is, he says, well, form yourself up a committee, get some people together, get someone to head your committee. And my answer to him was, I thought that's what your job was. And this is what I don't understand, is that when concerns come up to local councils, it seems more often than not that the answer is, well, get your people together and come down and maybe get a bunch of signatures and what have you. And honestly, I have to say, I really don't understand that. I mean, people here are bringing up concerns to this committee. If they're not legitimate, then they're not considered to be legitimate, well, so be it. But if there are legitimate concerns brought up, I don't understand how a council or a committee can say, well, I never heard it. I don't want to be dramatic here, okay? But I don't know. Presumably, there's minutes being taken here.
Yep.
So these meetings are on record, and I do not want to be dramatic. I do not have the time at this point in my life to start setting up committees and bringing people down and getting signatures and what have you. People are bringing up some legitimate concerns. If this council thinks that any of these concerns are legitimate, then I believe the onus is on you people to think about it and say, this is legitimate. It's our job to act on it. And this is the part I don't understand, sir.
Well, I can tell you when they do go through a traffic review, and we have some councillors here that sit on that committee, as you've seen it in Walbridge Loyalist Road and some other places where we're studying traffic speed limits right now, you'll see a public sign out there for public input.
Yes.
And we'll get various, I guess, opinions. Some want it changed, some don't want it changed. And so the committee looks at that and looks at the stats from the OPP of the, whatever the record is on the road of collisions or mishaps, whatever, and looks at the traffic counts and whatever. And then they make a decision and then pass it on to council for a final decision, either yea or nay. We dealt with some last night with recommendations from the committee.
Right.
Yeah. So there is a process we go through. Years ago, we didn't, and we ended up with, I think it was Walbridge Loyalist Road, the speed limit was changed umpteen dozen times, I believe, in 1 year almost. It seemed like it was up and down and up and down, but we've done this process, so it's well reviewed and looked into before there's a final decision made.
Okay, I understand that.
But they review all stats, good and bad, I'll put it that way, unfortunately.
Okay,
But
understood. And you mentioned the fact there may be some people opposed. I find it difficult that anybody would come in here and be opposed to a drop in the speed limit between Aikens and some other point between Aikens and Walbridge Road. But again, like I said, I mean, the issue has been brought up, and there was a serious accident there not long ago. I have to say, honestly, we've been there 7 years. When we first moved in, I told my wife, I said, there's going to be a serious accident in this area. I'm surprised there's only been one or two in that time. But again, I mean, I think most people in the community, not just on Stonecrest, also Burns is very tricky too. Not quite as tricky because they've got a little bit better view of what's coming and going.
No, it's actually worse
Because you can't see the bend coming from the
You can't
west.
see the bend, but you also, people coming into Stonecrest put their signal on, and you think they're coming into Burns.
Yes, yes.
And the reason I said some people oppose these studies,
Yes, sir.
we do get people that do on the questionnaires, and I know some of my colleagues here will vouch for that there's opinions from both sides and reasoning and whatever. Whether you agree with it or not, it's the public democratic process that is used.
Yes,
So
yes.
it can be reviewed, it can be looked at. Yeah.
Can we, as a group, ask that to be reviewed again if it was
Sure
already?
you can, yeah.
Can we?
Yep.
Yes, and we.
You can
how
ask
would
to have
we-
it be brought before the committee, the Traffic and Safety Committee, yes.
I don't understand clearly what the process for that would be.
Well, you get a
for
hold of the
ourselves.
city clerk, I believe, puts those meetings together, and then the committee has various times of the month that they meet, usually once a month, I guess, if there's enough of an agenda, and then they deal with each item that's on their agenda, the same as we're doing here tonight with
Okay.
applications.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, understood.
And it can be speed limits, it can be other issues too, sight lines, you name it. I think last night we dealt with an issue with a bunch of trees along the side of a road that needed to be cleaned. And so it's just not speed limits, but they deal with everything, safety issues in the city.
Okay. I just have one other quick question for Mr. Jardine. What is the purpose of the gate between the Soulcrest development and the Burns development?
You see, Mr. Chair, basically to stop it being a standard thoroughfare. It was never designed or intended to be a second point of access, direct access, through Burns Avenue into the Stonecrest subdivision. So it's a gated for emergencies and emergency services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Would you come forward, please, ma'am, because
Dinah, Medford, 66. One confirmation. I want confirmation that we're only going to have one entry point and one exit point. That's what I want confirmation of for all these homes. The existing homes on Stonecrest, the existing homes on Ledgecroft, and the existing homes that you're going to build, or the new homes that you're going to build. One exit point, one entry point. That's all I want to know.
okay, would you like to address
That's
that,
all I
staff?
want to know.
One primary exit, one
No, not
emergency
primary,
access.
just one. Is there going to be a secondary?
With an emergency access as a secondary.
Where is the emergency access?
Currently existing onto Burns Avenue.
So that's it?
That's it.
Okay, so we're going to add 100 more homes coming up Stonecrest Boulevard. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to make any comments or questions in regards to this application? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask the committee now to consider it. You've heard staff say to it, they're recommending approval of the draft plan and redline amendment of this subdivision, and I will entertain any questions, comments, or eventually a recommendation to approve or disapprove.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, it's moved by Mayor Harrison, put it on the floor. Councillor Card seconds it. And you want to comment? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say briefly to the resident of 95 Burns Avenue, I sit as the chair of environmental stewardship, and I'm happy to talk with the committee and look into tree canopy and tree replacement policy. It's something I've been thinking about, and it's been brought up in several planning meetings now, and there could be a policy, whether it's directly in the subdivisions, at least to replace trees, plant trees, possibly off-site to replace it, to keep it carbon neutral if the trees can't be replaced on site for the reasons of infrastructure. But I'm happy to look into that. It's been brought up by a lot of folks. So.
Mayor Harrison and
Yeah, a couple of points. The tree canopy is very important. It is, and look along number 2 highway. You'll see that we have recently planted a large number of trees between the base and the main entrance into the city. And those are a particular variety of trees, so the height of the tree is controlled by the variety. That's how we were able to do that in there. And yes, ash borer has been a deadly element for all of us. I have a farm, and I can tell you, I've got a lot of dead ash, and it's unfortunate. And the city we've had to cut down a fair number of dead ash because of the fact that it's unsafe and they rot very quickly. And so, yes, we're in that process. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I wished I had to. Yeah, we keep trying to do what we can do. And
Every other subdivision I've been in, you were given or you paid yourself for in the builder's price for a tree that was put on the lawn. And if there's not enough room on the lawn, then maybe that lot is too small for it.
or choose a variety that will work there, because there are different varieties, you know. The other thing I want to mention, somebody mentioned about the fact that Gertzman's the only contractor left. And you're absolutely correct. There were, at the beginning of this process, and we were here when we went through all the I guess you'd say, anxiety about Burns Avenue and using that exit and so on. And the fact is that the other two developers, because of the length of time and the process, the length of time it took to get to where we built housing at Stonecrest, the other two contractors dropped out and took their money and went elsewhere to do building. That's exactly what happened. So Andy Gertzman's the guy that stuck with us, and yes, and right now we're in a push and a push and a push, and the province is telling us, Brian, what was the density of the homes when we, before the province, I guess you'd say dramatically increased?
We've gone, on our low density side, we've gone from 10 units an acre to 25.
That's what the province is telling us that we have to adhere to, because the land, there isn't any other place that you can build, and so you've got to maximize the density in that development, and that puts stress on everything. Yes, it does. It puts stress on the roads, as you're telling us, and speed is the top. There are two things that with our police in particular: mental health and addiction. That's where a lot of police time is spent, or the homeless. That eats up. I know you're concerned with speeding, but you only have so many police officers, and you know when you're dealing with mental health and addiction and homelessness, that takes a lot of time. It does, but speeding is right next to that. Unfortunately, everybody's in a hurry. Everybody, I don't care where they're going. I don't know where they're going, but everybody's in a hurry. And
Sorry to interrupt. Can I just say, though, there was some talk about setting up traffic lights. Very, very expensive.
Well,
$1 billion.
we still.
How much to change
Well, but you still have, you know, I know what you're saying, but you still have to remember that people are trying to get to work. You know, and the base is a big element on number 2 highway. So, you know, I know what you're saying, but you still have to look at the realistic part of everybody traveling that road. And I'm telling you, I drive, yes, I do, and I'm like you, I think I'm a great driver. Don't ask my wife. Thank you.
Councillor Quinte?
Thank you very much. Mr. Elliott, you mentioned about having a candidate come to your home. I don't know if it was me or not. I have no idea, because I know I've been in that subdivision campaigning. It sounds like you were given good advice about forming a group of citizens to get together, because that's how City Hall works. I've seen it happen time and time again. If citizens want to bring up an issue, they are to join forces and come before the committees and the council, and it works. You can look at the ball diamond in Centennial Park. That's how that got there. You can look at you can look at the citizens out at Oak Lake. They had concerns about the condition of their lake. They got themselves together. They came to City Hall, and we helped them. And so if you want to work with City Hall, it's best to get together, form a group, form a collection of people, form an organization, and get one voice and come before City Hall. So that's one, and it works. It works. I can tell you it works. That's fine. It's a free country. You can vote for whoever you like. Or not vote if you don't want to vote. Lots of people didn't vote. Just look at the results of the last election. Anyhow, the other points are this application isn't having anything to do with Old Highway 2. So no, if you look at the application, this is about.
Sir?
Are you going to let me finish? Are you going to let me finish?
Would you come to the podium and each one of you express your opinion separate, please? We're not here with an argument. We express everybody's opinion and we listen to it. Don, you can complete your line of thought, and then if there's a rebuttal, this gentleman can do so.
This particular application is for amending the subdivision to allow more residences, or the potential for more residences. So the city is not building these homes. It was referenced somewhere in here. Somebody said that we were going to be building these homes. Well, the city is not building the homes. The developer is building the homes. And they're coming with this idea that meets the standards of the current environment. The province of Ontario, as we've already brought up, Mayor Harrison brought it up, Mr. Jardine brought it up, the province of Ontario today, the rules are different today than they were 5 years ago. And we have to follow the rules, just like you have to follow the rules. You mentioned about your driving habits and you follow the rules. Well, there are rules for subdivisions, and so we have to follow the rules for the subdivision. And so if we pass this today, that means the developer is going to go to the next step. And if you don't agree with the decision, you can make a proposal that you don't agree with the decision, and you can follow the steps of your disagreement through the whole planning process. It's all available. Mr. Jardine and his team will help you out if you don't like our decision tonight or the decision of the development later on, because the developer is just making one step in their plan. Do we want these homes built today? Yes. Yes, we want these homes built today. Are they going to get built today? No. They could be, it could be a year or 2 or 3 or even longer before any of these homes are built. It's up to the developer. It's not up to the city of Quinte West to build these homes. I do want to touch on Old Highway 2. You brought it up. The city has done some work on Old Highway 2. One of the things that the city does is we paint the roads twice a year so you can see the lines nice and clear. This has been a school zone ever since the school was built. So the school zone's been there for 50-some years. Sometime, I don't remember the date, but sometime in the last 8 or 9 years, we also designated this particular area from Frost Road over to Aikens Road as a community safety zone to allow the police to do further enforcement if they so choose. Yes, there is a traffic light at Aikens Road, and sometimes that traffic light is triggered by traffic, and sometimes it's on a sequence. I'm not certain as to how that works, but we could certainly request through the Public Works Department if there's a way to adjust that traffic light at Aikens Road to try to better control the traffic. I don't know. I'm not a traffic expert. And I'm not a city planner, and I'm not a bylaw officer. I happen to be a person who's interested in my community, and I want to help and assist. And the other thing about trees, we have had this topic about trees, not on this particular application, but in other applications for developments. And some people want trees and love to have trees, and other people don't want them because they don't want to maintain them or look after them. And so at this point in time, the city's process is we just leave it up to the homeowners to plant trees, and they should take into consideration the water lines and the sewer lines and any other easements on their property when they go to plant a tree. So that and I like trees. I have trees on my own property. I have been to Stonecrest, Burns Avenue, the school, Aikens Road. I don't live very far from this development. I also enter and exit onto Montrose Road, which isn't quite the same intersection because it's a little better viewpoint, but it is still tricky entering and exiting Montrose Road because you don't really know, is the person driving 80 kilometers an hour or are they driving some other speed? And when you're on Burns Avenue and you're going to exit to the left, it is definitely tricky because there is that corner there, and it is hard to judge the speed of cars, even when they're going 80 kilometers an hour. And we did install, also I forgot to mention, we also installed the speed camera that tells people what speed they are traveling, and I can't remember now if that's in between Burns and Stonecrest, or is that in between Stonecrest and the school? But it is right there, and you can see it nice and clear. So it's not like it's hidden. The camera, or not the camera, but the device does. It is large enough that people can see it. I know I see it all the time when I travel back and forth. And there's another one at Aikens Road too, for the eastbound traffic. And I don't know, like 6 months ago, that device wasn't working properly, so I notified Public Works and they came out and fixed it. So if you notify Public Works about, say, like the one woman who's left now was talking about the snow building up at the emergency exit. If somebody wants to phone Public Works and let them know that the snow's building up there and it needs to be cleared, well, then we can do something about it. Do the snowplow operators know that? Yes, they do. But they've got so many roads and so many hours to do their job. Like they're in their trucks 6, 8, 10 hours to get the snow cleared. But it's for all of us to help out. Like, you just can't pick on one person. So if you see something, by all means, like, give me a call. I even got my card here with my phone numbers. I'd be happy to give it to you. Give me a call and I'll call them on your behalf if you don't want to do it yourself. But we all have to help out.
Can I save you the call? Can I save the call, sir, and ask you if you do that now?
To call about the clearing of the snow?
To look into it.
There's no snow there today.
No, look into, are they prepared to look after the snow when the winter comes?
Yes, they're prepared to look after every part of the city.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
And I think Brian had mentioned that their planning staff are taking note of that, and we'll I'd have that addressed.
And the one more point I wanted to make is, if you read the agenda, item 9 on page 25 of the agenda, it talks about all these points about the engineering of the land. There was a whole bunch of other points. Now my computer's all thick. Anyways, it's in the agenda that the city is mentioning to the developer all of the terms and the conditions about the lot grading, the utilities, the lighting, all the engineering studies that need to be done, the environmental studies that need to be done, all of these things. The developer is going to have to go through every point, and there's over 30 items on the list of conditions that the developer has to go through, each and every one of them, come up with an answer, come back to the planning staff as what the response is, and also to your concerns that you've all mentioned here tonight. The developer has to come back to the planning department with their responses, and it's all going to be public information, so you all get to see what the process is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a rebuttal? Normally, we've heard you, but we'll give you the last kick of the can, I'll put it that way.
Thank you, thank you. It's nothing groundbreaking, just, I think I might have overlooked one thing, notwithstanding the traffic that we talked about, the number of vehicles potentially to be coming in and out. Also, we're probably looking at 2 to 3 years of all the construction vehicles coming in and out, of course. The other thing I just want to mention, it's just an observation, that the sub shop, it was a sub shop between Stonecrest and...
Farmer's Daughter sub shop.
Yes. I think it's been there a couple of years now, am I correct?
Probably about 5 years now.
Yeah, so just another thing you might want to consider, that there's a lot of the kids from the high school, they're walking from the high school to the sub shop.
Okay.
And there's no sidewalk there.
And there is no sidewalk.
No.
Correct.
No.
Again, I cannot overemphasize the danger.
Well, I'm sure if it's brought for the speed limit review, all that's taken in consideration, certainly, yeah. And a lot of roads now, we have bike lanes and pedestrian lanes because the shoulders are paved. And I think that highway is paved pretty wide too for bikers maybe too in spots, but not every spot.
Not where we are.
No, but I'm saying that we have roads that are in that.
Understood,
And
yes.
as we update them, they're being updated for bicycles and pedestrians and what have you, so
Yes.
all that's taken into consideration when it's reviewed.
Yes, Highway 62 on the south side of the bridge was just widened, right, on both
Yep.
sides, I believe,
Yep,
last year or 6 months ago.
yeah.
Okay, we're just hoping that some of our concerns will be considered. Myself personally, and maybe some of the others in the room, we're not totally familiar with the process and the procedures. I mean, all of you here are professional politicians and know the policies and procedures, and
Yep.
moving forward, we don't really know that. Our belief was that when we, that's why we vote for our local councilors, is that they are engaged with their community and take concerns forward. It wasn't my understanding, to be honest, that this is something where we need to bring the community together to get something done. Understanding the community had to come together to get a ball diamond built or get a park built. But we're bringing up some, I think, are legitimate health and safety concerns.
Well, regardless whether it's the councillors you vote for, the councillors that are set around this table from every ward, has a great interest in the whole city.
Yes, sir.
So we represent the whole city, regardless where we're elected from. Okay. Even though we make decisions in our own wards and beyond and whatever. But, and as the mayor says, I do recall in these early stages, it was called Three-Strand Developments, I believe. Right. And it went on for a number of years before it was even was started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think, I may be wrong. Personally, myself, I don't have an issue with the fact that housing expansion has to happen. Everybody knows that. That's not what we're here for. That's not what any of our grievances are. It's not a situation where we move there and we don't want anybody else moving there. That's not what this is about. This is about clearly most people in this room will understand that the population is increasing, affordable housing needs to be found, and roofs have to be built for the population. But we just want to make sure that it's done in an understanding and safe manner. And we think that some of our concerns are legitimate and feel like they maybe should have been addressed before some of these approvals were put forward. And I'm just, it's just the way I feel. I think it's the way some of these other people feel. There are other issues, environmental issues, but the health and safety issue, I think, is legitimate.
Oh, yes, it is, and our secretary is recording everything you say, and will be reviewed, and after that, this is the early stages, as Brian has said, and a lot of them will be addressed further down as the application goes through the approval process.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, I got some other questions. Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here tonight. You are taking part of the process by doing this. I think, you know, when you consider having a committee for stuff like this, you might be overthinking it just a little bit. And you know, the verbiage may be a little unclear. For me, I've had things happen in the past where I thought, you know, this needs to be changed. And so I think it really only needs to be a matter of you go to knock on a couple of neighbors' doors, see if they're on board with you, motivate them to message your counselor, and that's how this has to happen. It doesn't have to be anything that organized, or you know, I don't think it needs to take a lot of your time. Just talk to a few friends, few neighbors. If they feel the same, encourage them to send a message to their counselor, and that's how change happens. That would work too. Even just, like I said, even just motivating people to send an email to their counselor. You know, when the inbox starts filling up, things get noticed. It's just my advice to you, just from, I'm not a counselor, I'm a public member of this committee, but I've made change before, just not myself, but by talking to a few people, they followed suit. Next thing you know, change is happening.
Okay, committee, Ms. Simmons.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much for your concerns, because, you know, change is inevitable, but the more we know about where you live and your concerns, the better the outcome will be. Excuse me. So where I live, I was responsible for a petition and did get recommended changes by a school. So I do ask you to go ahead and voice your concerns, because change does happen. So now, on another note, after this key map, there's another map of the planned subdivision, and I'm just not sure about the wetland. I was hard to see. I just didn't know on the right-hand side what it showed. Is that a park or a wetland, or? It is wetland, and how are they going to keep that?
Brian?
Yep.
Brian, you can address
Yeah,
that.
it's you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the wetland is that map is showing. That map's obviously around the wrong way. It should go north to south, but on that, it's on the right-hand side. Is that kind of squiggly area just on the bottom right there, and that's the bottom of the escarpment. That will be protected. Is protected. It will be zoned environmental protection, and it will have a setback. So, as the lady said, no development within there. And similar thing right up in the bottom left corner. There is a small area of provincially significant wetland there. This also will be protected by a 35-metre buffer from any development.
Councillor Card, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to speak briefly to gentlemen's concerns. We receive a lot of different maybe complaints or questions about lots of different things in the community, and I think that an important part of the process is we would have to probably quintuple the staff of City Hall to run down and fulsomely investigate every single, you know, conversation or email or phone call. It would be impossible to do. So I think that there's certain thresholds and in place. For instance, the traffic study for the speed reduction investigations. You collect dozens of signatures from your neighbors in the community, and that particular one exists to have that unanimity coming from the community because it's a lot to overcome. We just had a lot of several proposed reductions come to council last night, and none of them were reduced. Surprising to me, the survey results, it would surprise you, but basically the people that live in these communities like yourself are very concerned about the speed, and everyone outside doesn't want any speeds lowered. It was almost unanimous with the surveys. It shocked me. This is my first year as a councillor. No one wants speeds reduced anywhere, except for their own neighborhoods for obvious reasons. So anyway, that is the reason for that. So there is a process, and it's not to create more difficulty. Everyone has busy lives, but yeah, I think the idea being that if there is that unanimity in the neighborhood, and it's not just a couple of people that are picking on a particular issue that can maybe do some changes that aren't, it has to be the whole community coming together to push back. So that's just the process for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee, we have a...
Mr. Chair, just before you ask for a vote, I just want to mention, yes, speed cameras are Yeah, anyways,
You can hire your other 27 people.
they're on the list. Let's leave it like that, okay? Let's leave it there.
Mr. Mayor, can I just say, just quickly, I think also, just thought of it, but pretty obvious, that if there was a reduction in speed in that area, it would contribute to allow more cars to be able to come out, in and out, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's a gain, though. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? But I just want you to know that we do take safety seriously in this city. We certainly do. And over the last 3 years with our OPP detachment, we've only had one platoon down because of illness. And we have the complement of officers here that are required. Not many places have that. You don't always, I know you don't know that, but that's a true fact. Murray Centennial School on the Wooler Road, I was there for a long time as principal, and I think this, isn't it awful? I never really looked at this, but I think the speed limit's 80, I think, right through there. Am I
60
wrong?
when school's on, when the
Is
lights
it
flash.
60 when the school, it is school zone, but that's only when the lights are flashing, right? Otherwise, it's 80?
Yes.
Yeah, so that there are others, but the responsibility is still the drivers. You know, like you and I and so on, we have to be.
And I'm not, I hope nobody else here is criticizing.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying, I'm not suggesting you are criticizing, but I want you to know, that we have.
80, even at 80, yes, there's people doing 100, there is no doubt. I bet, my guess is 80% of the people going down that 80 are doing between 80 and 100. That's one issue, but if it was 60, then would people be doing 70? And it could only make things safer and improve the traffic.
Well, there's two sides to everything, okay? So anyways, thank you very much. I appreciate the information. I just want you to know we have 7 fire halls in this city, and you have one right close to you on Aikens Road, and you've got one at Tucker's Corners. And those, yes, and I'll tell you, we also have a training center in this city. No other one has one. We have one here where firefighters, volunteers are trained and training on a regular basis so that we have the complement of volunteers we require. We also have a list of people who want to be a volunteer in our city. So we're great, and I really respect those people. I admire them because it's not something I can do, but I certainly respect them, and we take it seriously. That's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
We think there's excellent emergency services in our community. I'm really be happy about that.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. We're going to be running half the night. We've just done the first application, but we appreciate your input. And we have one other section to deal with that's going to be a part of this a zoning bylaw coming up with the same, I guess, site and application. So we have a motion on the floor, regularly moved and seconded to approve the recommendation as presented for the red line amendment and of the draft plan of subdivision. Any further questions from the committee? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We now move to item 7.2, staff report 23-117 PD, a zoning bylaw amendment application. The owner is GCL Developments, Inc. The agent is Arcadis. The location is Stonecrest Estates. The file number is D09/S27/23. Katie, would you like to also comment on this application, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this application is to rezone the subject lands in order to recognize the reconfiguration of phases 5 and 6 of Stonecrest Estates as a result of the concurrent red line amendment. The subject property is currently zoned open space, environmental protection, and residential type 2 exception 5. The residential type 2 exception 5 zone includes special provisions that recognize the open roadside ditches that were part of the original subdivision design, and therefore the minimum lot area and frontage requirements were larger than the standard R2 zone. The lands in the northern portion of the subject property abutting the CP rail line are currently zoned open space in order to reflect the buffer requirements from CP rail as well as the construction of the crash berm. However, the lands within the open space zone exceed the 30-meter requirement from CP and encompass lots 35 to 52 on the red line plan. The environmental protection zone currently on the property recognizes the central coastal wetland present on the property. The lands currently zoned open space are located along the northern boundary of the property adjacent to the rail line. This application proposes to remove the open space zoning in this area and place a portion of the lands in the provincially significant wetland zone, as well as the residential type 2 exception 17 zone. The portions of these lands to be rezoned provincially significant wetland would recognize the Bayside East wetland complex located in the northwestern section of the property. The wetlands recommended 35-meter buffer would be placed in the environmental protection zone. Placing the wetlands buffer in the EP zone would prohibit future uses and ensure that the buffer remains protected. This application proposes to have the central coastal wetland remain in the environmental protection zone. However, the boundaries of the wetland would be adjusted to reflect the field-verified boundaries as well as the required 15-meter setback. A majority of the stormwater management area, Block 101, as shown on the draft plan, is proposed to be zoned open space to reflect the intended functions of the lands. A small portion of the stormwater management area would be zoned environmental protection as part of the wetland extends into the area. The remainder of the subject lands will be placed in the residential type 2 exception 17 zone to recognize the required 30-meter buffer from the CP right-of-way crash berm, as well as other noise mitigation measures. The provincial policy statement and the city's official plan policies support a range of housing types within the settlement area, as well as efficient use of land and services. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would allow for the subject lands to be used in a more efficient manner by reducing the required lot areas and frontages to align with a more urban development standard. Ultimately, the zoning bylaw amendment would allow for 96 residential dwelling units to be developed on the subject property while also recognizing and protecting the environmental features present on the property. Overall, the application meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
Thank you very much, Katie. Appreciate your response. Okay, we have up again. Is there anyone here wishes to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition or have general questions? Okay, hearing none. Committee, you have a recommendation to approve the zoning bylaw amendment. I would entertain a motion or any questions or comments.
I'll move it.
Councillor Quinte moves it, second by Councillor McHugh. Any further questions or comments regarding?
One more thing that I forgot to mention earlier. The Bayside Water Treatment Plant has more than enough capacity for not only this development, but if you are not already aware, the Bayside Water Treatment Plant is also connected to the Trenton Water Treatment Plant, and it also is connected to the Frankfurt Water Treatment Plant. So there is access to lots of water. So if people are having issues with the water pressure, I encourage you to reach out to the water department and have them come and let you know if that's something on your property or something on the city property. And the next thing I forgot to mention as well is the city's investment this past year in the wastewater treatment plant that you are all currently using who live in Stonecrest, and the students and the staff at the high school. The wastewater treatment plant has been expanded to accommodate this growth and still assist with your wastewater needs as well. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Did I get him over a second or was that? Did I get him over a second or? Yeah. Okay. Okay. It's been regularly moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor of approval? Carried. Thank you. We now move to item 7.3, a staff report 23-118 PD, a zoning bylaw amendment application. The owner is 1718553 Ontario Inc. and Marie Capuciti. The agent is Spencer Hutchison. The location is 564 and 578A Old Highway 2. The file number is D09/S29/23. Katie, would you like to? We're putting you under heavy work tonight. Comment on this, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this official plan amendment is to amend the City of Quinte West official plan to create a site-specific policy which would permit a maximum of 16 townhouse units serviced by municipal water and communal sewage system. At present, the official plan policies pertaining to South Sydney Planning District 1 state that permitted uses within the district include existing residential uses, single detached dwellings on existing vacant land, as well as community and public service facilities. The preliminary site plan shows 4 blocks of one-story townhouses oriented towards the Bay of Quinte, each block containing 4 dwelling units. The 4 buildings are located in the northern portion of the subject lands in the approximate location of the existing dwellings. The site plan indicates that an enlarged front yard setback from Old Highway 2 would be provided, while also providing a significant rear yard setback from the shoreline of the Bay of Quinte. At this time, there is no formal site plan control application, therefore the concept plan is still considered to be preliminary. In addition to the concept plan, the owner's planning consultant has also submitted several technical studies supporting the proposed development, including a servicing memo, a grading plan, a servicing impact letter, a septic design, a planning justification report, and a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment. Moving forward, the agent has indicated that the intent is to keep the subject properties legally separate under 2 different and independent condominium corporations. Each corporation would be responsible for the common area of each property, including driveways, parking areas, landscaping, water services, septic system services, and stormwater management. This ensures that the condominium corporation is responsible for maintaining all on-site services and ensures that they would not become a responsibility of the city. This official plan amendment application is the first step in developing the subject property, as it will ensure the policy framework is in place to allow for the proposed development to proceed to the next step. The proposed development of the subject properties will also be subject to a zoning bylaw amendment as well as site plan control, where more technical details pertaining to the development will be reviewed. The zoning bylaw amendment will be presented to this committee at a following meeting. The approval of this application would result in an opportunity for residential intensification in South Sydney and would provide additional housing options for the city. This application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the intent of the city's official plan. This application represents good planning and is therefore recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have any in attendance who wishes to address this application? In favor?
Good evening, Chair Allier and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Spencer Hutchison. I'm a registered professional planner and have some experience over the years in planning. Thank you very much. And with me is Marie Capacity, the owner of the 2 properties. I thank Katie for her presentation and her report is a part of your agenda. She's covered it well, looked at the provincial and the municipal policies and the overall concept. What I do have tonight is a brief slides to put some pictures to a lot of words. So as noted, it's 2 properties, 564 and 578A Old Highway 2, and that's the property in red on the screen. Now, which arrow, left, right, center?
To the right.
Right. So the lot that you see there that goes from Old Highway 2 in the north down to the Bay of Quinte is just shy of 1,000 feet deep, 950 feet deep. And it's 255 feet wide along Old Highway 2. And that works out to 5.1 acres. At this hour, there are 2 single detached dwellings on the property, on 5 acres. As you talked at the first application, what we're requesting is permission to put 16 units on that, to intensify. But when you look at the property, 16 townhouses is still low development. I mean, and when we get to the site plan in a moment, the whole south end of the property will be left undeveloped as green space. As I say in the last point, site is largely grassed open site, sloping from Old Highway 2 to the Bay of Quinte. So here's the conceptual site plan in yellow, light color. There's 4 blocks. Each block is 4 townhouses. Old Highway 2 is to the north. The Bay of Quinte is to the south and quite a ways down just to make the scale work. As Ms. Whitehead referred to, 4 blocks of 4 townhouses. We are going to use the grade so that the south blocks will be lower than the north blocks by a little bit to give everybody a clear line of sight. We're talking around 1,800 square feet each unit. Right now, both properties have a driveway, and those will be eliminated with 1 central shared driveway in the middle of the common lot line. 32 parking spaces will be provided, which is 2 per unit. The south end of the property is going to be left in communal open space, and we'll look at that in a moment. And everything is well north of the Bay of Quinte and any regulatory requirements of the Conservation Authority. And I believe in the agenda it refers that they did comment with no comment. And this will be developed by a plan of condominium with shared common elements that was referred to in the earlier presentation. Servicing. Basically, as was referred to, water goes across the front of this property east to west, so there's sufficient water and fire hydrant. Stormwater will continue doing what it's always done, is flow southwards. In the parking lots, there'll probably be a storm scepter to catch the grit and oil and catch it before it goes south. Otherwise, water will follow the natural swales to the south. With some berms, it'll be slowed down and pond before it gets to the bay, so the quantity of water won't change. The key issue on this property is there's no septic system, or sorry, there is no municipal system. As you're well aware, and later tonight you have an application for the west end, servicing is a big problem for a municipality, millions of dollars, and you know that quite well. You can't be going east, you can't be going west, north all at the same time. This section between CFB Trenton and Woolwich Road, someday maybe, I don't know what that day would, there might be a sewer. I'm not gonna hold my breath on that. So if anything's gonna happen along this section, much like you referred to in Stonecrest with its own package plant, what we're proposing is 2 package plants, one for each block of 8. And we've had a septic designer, qualified, familiar to building staff, who's designed this, looked at the flows, and basically has taken it to the level of you could apply for a building permit based on the study that was submitted. Not that we're anywhere near that. And why we want a condominium? You guys don't want to look at it, we understand that. The condominium corporations will be the owner of the communal area, including the septic system. They'll have reserve funds. If there's any maintenance down the road or anything has to replace, it's not the city of Quinte West, it'll be the condominium corporation who will be responsible for looking after the septic system. Some pictures. So this is Highway 2, old Highway 2 looking east. 5 lanes if you count the center turning lane. More than enough capacity for 16 townhouses. And I do note to the west of the property, and you can see the sign is the Bayside Motel. So to the west of this residential property is not another neighbor, it's a hotel. This is looking west, same sort of picture. To the far left by the telephone pole, you see the driveway into the easterly house, and you can see the single-family dwelling, single detached dwelling to the left side of the picture. As noted, that will be demolished, and in about that approximate location would be the first of 4 blocks, and then another block behind it. So looking at our neighbors, this is on the west side of the subject property. As I say, Bayside Motel. It's an old style motel with the cars parked right in front, a courtyard situation. So the back of their units face the subject property. So they're looking down the common property line. There's some very mature trees, and you can see small little windows on 2 of the apartment units, or I should say motel units, small little windows for the bathroom. So it's not like you have infill development in the urban areas, and you always worry about compatibility. We'll have townhouses on the left side of this picture. They're facing south to look at the bay in the distance. The end walls will be to this side, and they're not going to be looking at anybody's house because they're going to be looking at the back wall of a motel. We've flipped completely around. We're now at the edge of the Bay of Quinte, looking north on the property. Quite clearly, there is a slope. You can see, if you look closely, you can see both single-family dwellings. There's a gap between the 2. They're close together. So first of all, there's a slope coming down to the Bay of Quinte. All development is going to be on the high land, outside any flood lines, regulatory lines. The other thing, if you notice on the east boundary, and we'll have a close-up picture, a very mature, highly dense hedge that completely sound, noise, visual. Can't see between the neighbors to the east, because it is a single family. And this whole south end will be communal. It will be open space left as it is, owned by everybody in the condos. You know, it's envisioned there'd be a fire pit, there would be horseshoes, there'd be bocce, there'd all be sorts of things, and chairs to sit down on the Bay of Quinte. That's just what, turning 90 degrees, that's looking west along the shoreline. None of this area would be touched. We'd be well north of this, so no environmental issue. This is looking southwest. Again, looking at the hedge and the vegetation on the east property line, and the vast majority of the property will be left in natural state. And this is the size and thickness of that hedge along the east property line. In the very corner of the left, you see one of the houses, the edge of one of the houses, and you know, a person couldn't walk, you couldn't see, you can't hear. So in most situations when you have infill development, you worry about the neighbors. This property is golden for neighbors. And any questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I just have one question, and I direct this to the Marie. Marie, what are you going to do with the senator? Don't answer it. Don't answer it. Thank you. I know he's not leaving. I know that.
Okay, do you have a question?
To be honest, truthful, it's envisioned this to be two-phase because people are living. The west side would probably, house would be knocked down, 8 units put there, keeping the other house up and running. When the townhouses are finished on the west side, certain people will move across and repeat on the east side. And I mean, 16 houses, a townhouse at one time is a chunk, so it's going to be 8 and 8, and it'll be staged to allow people to still live.
Councilor Quinte.
Thanks. I like the idea. I'm just questioning the 2 condominiums. Because with the condominium corporation, you have to have a board of directors. The people have to be owners there. And not everybody wants to be on a board of directors. So my concern is for the 2 condominium corporations to find sufficient members to be on the board and to run the condominium. So I don't understand, with only 8 units, why you're going with 2 condominiums instead of 1.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a very good question, and it's really a technical answer. Under septic systems, there's maximum capacities before you get into different levels of approval, and it's like 10,000 liters. And once you go over 10,000, you're into the Ministry of Environment, you're into big studies, you're into 2 years of approvals. The design and the report that was included, both septic systems keep us below the magic number of allowing it to be a local decision, which would allow construction to happen next summer. If we put them together, and we originally thought about putting them together and creating 16 in one septic system, it'd be 3 years before we'd get approval from the Ministry of Environment and $100,000. So by keeping them smaller, we can get development going.
Thanks.
Councilor Katsovas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You alluded to it, Spencer. That would be my only concern, was the septic system. In the report on our page 8, electronically in the number 1, there's a however. The design loads are near the maximum permitted. And that would be my concern after reading this. I think it's a good use of land. It's a creative idea. I just always expect the best and plan for the worst, so it says near capacity.
Yeah, so as staff alluded to, tonight we're just talking about the policy. If it goes forward tonight and you agree that this property can be, can be used for this density, these units, we'll be back with a request for probably R4 zoning, which will put in place setbacks, lot coverage, and everything. Once hopefully you accept that and approve that, and that sets the size of buildings, then we will be back for site plan approval. And that's highly technical, lays everything out with servicing drawings and grading drawings and landscape drawings. And At that process, again, there'll be input and there will be, you know, more calculations. At this hour, we showed 1,800 square feet. Maybe by the time they get there and by the time, you know, we start looking at building costs, it might be 1,600 square feet or 2,000. But all I can say, and that's a long answer, is our consultant has designed it, has sort of signed off on it, and said, these are under the limit. And your chief building official has basically said, they're under the limit, they're right at the limit, but he'll still have another kick at the cat because the next step would be a building permit. And again, he'll check the numbers with the actual building plans, and he'll say, you got too many fixtures or whatever, you gotta take a, you know, you gotta take a powder room out or something.
Okay, any other question, Ms. Simmons, before I asked someone else to come forward?
Hi, Maureen.
So I guess you partially answered my question. I don't understand why there's two separate entities. And I guess septic, but to me, septic is a huge issue. And so is this a septic package unit?
The actual design of the two, I don't know if it'll be probably pretty vague. Oop. One more. So this represents the 8 townhouses, and then to the south you see 8 rows or 8 beds. It's all been designed with setbacks. They drilled the soil because the type of soil affects your septic system, the size of the field. So science went into this report, and it's based on looking after 8 and 8, and it's a small unit, and it'll be part of what everybody buys into, along with the driveways, the parking areas and stuff. It's something they will have to look at, and if you don't want that type of commitment or lifestyle, move into town. You know, that'll be, you know, it'll be laid out, and I should say, between site plan and building permit, we'll be back for a plan of condominium approval.
But what I don't understand is what Stonecrest has.
Yeah, completely. Oh, but this is 16 units with potentially 32 people flushing, using water and everything else. That is a whole scale difference. And as was referenced, it's already in the process or whatever to be upgraded once already. That is what you do if you're doing a subdivision. I mean, if we, you know, if we said, oh, we really, physically, we could fit 32 units on this, then yeah, we'd be into a different scale and we'd have to do it as one big one.
So basically, this is an old style septic.
No, it's state of the art. I mean, when you say old style, I mean, they used to be rural areas and you used to have a acre lot because you had to fit everything in on a septic system. The way things are now, I mean, look at the size of the plant on the south end of Aikens Road for that whole subdivision. I mean, it's just like a glorified transport truck almost, or a little bit bigger. I mean, that is state of the art. This will be state of the art in that sense.
So there'll be 2 separate septic, right? One for each condominium.
Yep.
And so if something goes wrong with one, it's that condominium?
Yeah, it would be
Yes.
eight families, 8 individual.
Okay.
But, I mean, these things are designed, and of course, with any condominium, you have maintenance fees and reserve fees, so money will be put aside. You know, when you buy a house or whatever, you expect it to last forever. I mean, digression, but I had to put a new sewer in my house this summer after 90 years. The clay pipe gave out. I got 90 years, well, or 3 of us got 90 years out of it. I can't see that being a problem in the most of the lifetimes of people here.
And the other question I have, are they 2-story?
1.5 with a sort of lookout. But that could change, you know, between now and the site plan.
And the other question is about the shoreline. Is you said that'll be left alone, but you know, owners want to put docks down or whatever. Who is responsible for that?
So that whole end of the property will be communal. It'll be owned by be the 2 condos. So the one condo would own from the back of the units to the bay, and the other one, and they probably have a reciprocal agreement to have it all grass cut at the same time. And any application to do anything along the shoreline, of course, would have to go through the normal process at Lower Trent or Quinte Conservation for approval and submit for a building permit or site alteration. At this hour, there's no desire to, get down on the water's edge, stay away from it. You can put chairs within, 10 feet of the shoreline. If you want to throw a fishing rod in, you can do that. But there's no.
And the other question I have, it showed from your design that there was a mutual middle driveway between the two. So who's going to look after that?
There'll be reciprocal agreements between the two condominiums.
Okay.
So that, again, they'll probably just get one company to plow for everything. And one condo will grant half the road width to the other to go over. Most places along Old Highway 2 and other major roads, if there's severances, you ask for communal common, and there's reciprocal legal agreements between the two sides.
Okay. Any other questions of Spencer before I move on? Councilor O'Neill and then the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the problems I feel we have with Quinte West is Airbnbs. And if you're close to the limit and these go out to Airbnbs, you have 8, 10 people in one unit at a time. The condo corps have rules and regulations. Are you going to put in the rules and regulations that they won't be able to Airbnb these properties?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you have different owners who are buying in, and they realize they're buying in with 7 other individuals, and they want their right protected, and they don't want it going south. So it will be part of the, all this thing will be locked down so that we don't go astray, and you have one bad apple or 2 bad apples affecting everybody. The other thing, as I should say, the intent, the family will have a couple of units. It's not just going to be developed and sold off to 16 new people. So there is this properties have been in the family since the 1950s. It's going to be developed, but the family's going to hold units. So they've got a personal interest to make sure where they're living is not going to be detrimental.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, a couple of comments. Go back to Ms. Simmons' comment. Yes, it is, the septic system that's used is ancient. Yes, it is. And, but we've upgraded it to modern, I guess you'd say, tanks and pipes and so on. So the system is basically the same. And the one at Stonecrest is, as you mentioned, a container. That's exactly what it is. And those containers are very rigid and very durable. In fact, I can't tell you what year it was, but I went to Kempville to see the first one put in place, and it came from Brantford or Brampton, one of those places. That's where it was built, unloaded at Kempville, and there wasn't one thing out of place inside that container. Everything was exactly where it should be. The one at Stonecrest is, a waste in and water out. And they tell us, and I'm not an expert, but they tell us that the water that comes out of that, you could drink it. I'm not thirsty, but that's what they tell us.
It appears you could drink it.
Yeah, and inside that is there are membranes inside that container, and those membranes are what filter out the solids. So, and if you want to expand, if the container can be expanded, you can add more membranes to it, or you can add another container to the side of it and increase the capacity for the subdivision. It is a remarkable, I think, remarkable technology. But you also have to remember that the city of Quinte West still has to keep our wastewater plant, because all of these things have to be at some time pumped, and all the solids have to come out of that container and go to our main plant. So everything is, yes, it's old technology, it's modern equipment that's being used, and we're all part of it. Thank you.
Ms. Simmons, one supplemental?
Oh, I just had a question because, and I'm not, obviously, I don't know a lot about septics other than having one at my cottage. I thought these new packages, you can get sizes appropriate to anything, right? So it doesn't have to be, a huge container like at Stonecrest. So I just, from what I had heard, that the water you could almost drink when it comes out. So that was why I was just wondering whether that would be contemplated.
Yeah, I'll wait till it goes through the system first.
Okay, is there any other questions of Spencer? If not,
I just want to comment. Sorry, I meant to mention this and I didn't, but I want to congratulate the people who are doing the planning in this, with this process, and working with Director Jardine to make it, to put everything in place that needs to be. And to me, it looks great. And I'm saying this because I know that there were times when things were all put together on the back of a cigarette package. But thank you very much today for doing everything right. Thank you.
okay.
We'll say no names. I've been around too long, I know.
Okay, if there's no other questions of Spencer, Brian, maybe you want to make a comment, but I want to ask if there's anybody has general questions or opposition to
Yeah,
this.
just to make a comment, I'd just like to add to Mr. Hutchison's comments there, his presentation. Just for the committee, it's not, with respect to multiple condominium corporations, that's not uncommon. That happens, we've got a couple of developments that are set up that way, condominium, and whether it's going through various phases or whether it's different apartment blocks, there'll be different condominium corporations that will have some reciprocal rights on some of the shared utilities. But it's just for the committee's comfort, that's not an uncommon situation. And it's also very common for condominiums to be specific in their non-permission of Airbnbs or short-term rentals. So that's a common thing. So.
Okay, thank you. Are there any people in attendance who wishes to object in opposition or have general questions regarding this application? If you do, please come forward. Okay. Okay. All right, hearing none, committee, you have a recommendation to approve in front of you, and I'd entertain a motion and any questions. Mr. Brown moves, Councillor Card seconds. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We now move on to item 7.4, staff report 23-119 PD, zoning bylaw amendment application. The owner is 2264692 Ontario Inc. The agent is C Architecture. I hope I pronounced that right. The location is 79 East Davis Street. The file number is D09/T33/23. Shauna, you get to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the committee. The purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject property from the corridor commercial zone to the corridor commercial exception 13 zone, which would permit the conversion of the at-grade existing commercial building to be developed into 6 residential dwelling units and reduce the required parking standards. The subject property has been developed with a commercial building housing a 1-story restaurant currently in operation, with a 2-story building situated on the east and southeast end of the property. The southeast is currently developed on the 2nd floor with residential units with a vacant commercial ground floor unit. The area surrounding the building has been paved for parking areas, and the subject property is serviced by both municipal water and wastewater services. The site is surrounded by a mix of land uses. To the south and west of the property would include existing residential uses in the form of single detached dwellings. To the east of the site, there are existing residences and light industrial uses that extend along the north and south of the east extension of East Davis Street. There are also commercial uses to the north of the site. The subject property is designated within Planning District 3A of the Trenton Urban Service Area of the city's official plan, which permits both low and medium density residential development. The proposed development is within the medium density policies, and the built form is a housing type found within the medium density residential policies. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would allow for the conversion of the existing at-grade commercial building redeveloped into those 6 residential dwelling units. It is the opinion of planning staff that the conversion for the ground floor commercial space to residential units cannot be considered accessory and would not maintain the intent of the corridor commercial zone. Thus, the zoning bylaw amendment is required. The amendment would also provide relief to the parking requirements outlined within the zoning bylaw. Their application requests a reduction in parking requirements from 40 parking spaces to 36 parking spaces provided on the site. Under the zoning bylaw, a restaurant requires 1 space per 9 square meters, with the current ground floor restaurant in operation having a floor space of 163.3 square meters. The requirement would be 19 parking spaces. The site plan submitted by the applicant is affording 1 space per 11.6 square meters for a total of 14 parking stalls. The residential parking stall requirements are satisfied within the zoning for the configuration of the site for the residential units.
This amendment would also recognize that the proponent has only identified one 3-meter width stall at one end of the parking row, as in order to increase the width of the last stall at all ends of the row would result in additional parking stalls being omitted from the site. The requirement within the parking provisions within the zoning bylaw requires that in the case of parking areas containing more than 3 parking spaces, where parking spaces are provided in a row, the parking spaces located at the end of each row shall have a minimum width of 3 meters. Therefore, this application for a zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the policies of the city's official plan, and will comply with the city's zoning bylaw. As such, the application is recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone in attendance who would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition or have general questions? Please come forward, state your name and address, please.
My name is Michelle Avery. I live at 76 Canal Street. Many of you, like Mayor Harrison, would remember this building. There was probably a lot of cigarette packages in contracts made in that building. I have lived at 76 Canal Street since 1997, so for 26 years I have seen a lot of things going through this building. I am not concerned with it becoming apartments. I am actually quite pleased with what they've done with the property. They've actually done a very good job bringing it up to aesthetically pleasing to look at. I do have concerns with the way the lot is outlined and the way it backs onto my property. For a number of years, I've had issues with the agents of this property causing me grief with my property. Most recently, 4 years ago, I had to pay $6,000 to replace my fence in the back. It was a steel fence, and people were parking into the fence. They were running into the fence, and the agent took no care to provide any relief for snowplow removal, and his snowplow contractors would plow their snow right up against the fence. And if you look at this diagram, which you probably have on your laptops in front of you, the only space I see in this diagram that allows for dumpsters, for apartment building, and for snow placement, because contrary to popular client belief in Quinte West, you're not supposed to put your snow on the road. There's no place for the safety of my fence. I've had relief over the last 2 years because the last 2 years there's been nothing going on in this building. It's been very quiet and nice.
Excuse me, I cannot hear properly.
Who said
Can
that?
you be a bit closer to mic?
Do we have somebody on the phone?
I'm short, so I can.
Had no idea.
Okay, so I did have to replace my fence. Unfortunately, the city was unable to help me with the previous agent that was in this building. Currently, there's a big tractor trailer parked there, so I don't have this issue right now. The issue I have right now is overgrowth coming over my fence and into my property. I have an in-ground pool that backs right onto that fence. I have had previous issues with tenants throwing their garbage over the fences, dog waste that people don't pick up, but also the overgrowth of that property maintenance has been an issue for me for years. I actually have to go over to that property with hedge cutters and cut the weeds and the trees and the grapevines back. So I'm hoping that with this development that will no longer be an issue, but I do have concerns with where the dumpsters are going to go. I don't know how anybody's actually supposed to read this when they come in the mail, because even with my glasses, I absolutely cannot figure out what these boxes are. But looking at the proposal of this property, I see lots of parking spaces, but right on my property line is where there's an opening space, which tells me that that's where the snow is gonna go, and that's where the dumpsters are gonna go. So that is a concern that I have that I do believe is a valid concern. The other concern I have is I'm unsure if it is the 79 East Davis property or if it is the 72 Canal Street property that here in this corner has put a fence that you can't see oncoming traffic. And if I invite all of you to come down to Canal Street, and Mr. Harrison, I know you've been down to Canal Street, when you have to make a left-hand turn out of there, I can't see anything. Well, I can see because my truck is lifted. Anybody with a regular car can't see traffic coming when you're turning left out of there. You're hoping that you see their headlights coming, and I go to the gym at 10 Fitness just up the road at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm praying that I can see somebody's headlights coming through that fence. There has been accidents at that property. I did bring it to council and bylaw a few years ago, and that fence remains. And it's a sightline issue, so if that is a property at 79 or 72, I'm unsure. The other issue that I want to bring up, and if the agent is listening on the phone, I think it's important to understand that this building has been used for many years. It was used as a hotel. It was most recently, in the last 5 years, submitted to council to use as apartments, so people have been living in these apartments. There is an entrance at the back, so where the space is open here, and you see the cross arrows for traffic, you see an entrance arrow. That is a fire escape, and for a number of years, it has been a hazard. People have been using that as their common entrance and exit. I also have issue with the tenant types standing there, looking into my backyard, and I have an in-ground pool. It makes it very uncomfortable for me and my family to use the backyard at times. So I want to make sure that that fire exit is used as a fire exit, that it's not used as a common entrance and exit. That is important to me. It's also important that, I actually called the fire department at one point and asked them why this fire door was propped open. It's always open. So that's a concern, being that close. Should a fire ever break out, that should be used as a fire escape, not a common entrance. The garbage, so I want to make sure that the dumpsters are not placed on my fence. That's important to me because I do use my backyard. Dumpsters smell bad. Doesn't matter what time of year you have them, it's going to stink. They sit for a week. So I want to make sure that that fence line doesn't have dumpsters on it. And then the just general maintenance of the property. So it looks to me like the agent is going to clean up most of the stuff against that fence line, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to be responsible for going over there and removing the garbage and the weeding and things that are not my concern. I would also ask the agent to take care in putting something in front of that fence to make sure that people don't run into it. That was the reason why we had to replace the fence. I had small children, I have animals. We had to replace the fence I think we had about 2 days to gather everything because we couldn't keep putting the old fence back up, but somebody actually ran through the fence into my backyard. So I would like something there, some sort of parking barrier, some sort of barrier to protect that fence from coming down. In my opinion, it should go down the entire fence line if you're going to have parking, because the neighbors at 72 and the neighbors on Front Street, we all have fencing along that line. And I think it's pretty important that we make sure if we're putting more parking spaces in there, that we're protecting the properties of the people on the other side. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Brian, would you like to, or planning staff like to address any of them? I know there'll be site plan control, and I wasn't sure whether that was going to be addressed here at this point or where we're at with that.
Through Mr. Chair, no, I do believe the proponents on the line, you may be able to answer some of those comments. As the resident mentioned, this is a reuse of an existing building. There's no new development as such in this. There won't be site plan process required. That being said, the majority of the comments made sound like, this building, I don't think it's unfair to say this building has some history and a history of different uses and different levels of care and attention. And I hope, and maybe the proponent can speak to this, that a lot of these issues will probably be dealt with through better site management and management overall of the operation of the property. Definitely when it comes to things such as garbage or locations of garbage bins, use of fire exits for uses other than fire escapes, those are things that the municipality can get involved in from an enforcement standpoint. But I would certainly like to maybe get the response from because there is no development proposal. There's nothing that we are outside of the internal work within the building. There's nothing exterior on the site that's changing here. So I'd like to maybe, if through the chair, ask the proponent to speak to some of those issues that have been raised, because I think a lot of them speak to the way that the site's been managed and cared for over the years.
Okay. Donna, do you want to hook that up for us, please, for the proponent, if he's available? For comment?
Will you be committee members? Through you, Chair, this is Arshad, architect working with C Architecture Limited. Um, uh, the comments provided by the neighbor are all good feedbacks. Some could be taken into consideration during building permit process, and we will be upgrading those fire exits and the location, main entrance will be more highlighted as part of this exercise. So the exits will not be used as entrance. I'm sure once the entrance is more prominent and visible, uh, the uh, uh, the parking, we can put bollards where the fence is, that will protect the fence from the parking. And for the dumpster and garbage bin, I can say that there is a loading space which is opposite side of the fence. So that will be where the dumpster and garbage bin locations will be. So that should be far from the neighboring properties. The comment about the fence uh, of creating an obstacle in the while you are coming out of Canal Street into the Water Street was not clear to me, but the fence seems to be too far from that intersection. But we can work with city and see if the fence is going out of property limits, we can fix that. Owner is willing to really improve the outlook of this property with new asphalt and new painting on driveway, new parking limits, racks, and some green space for children play area. So this property will become a very different uh, uh, cross section after this project finishes, and you will see more development coming in building permit process.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee, do you have any questions of Mr. Sadecki?
Just, I won't,
Mayor Harrison?
not any question, but I certainly understand her concern. Good fences make good neighbors, and good neighbors look after fences. They don't destroy them. So I'm sure that the new owners want to be good neighbors, and you brought up some good points for them to certainly focus on and adhere to. So thank you very much.
And I also think through planning staff, in regards to the cars hitting the fence, there should have been maybe cement barriers put there so your tires will only roll so far instead of going, I guess by the Braille method, when you hit something, you'd stop all of a sudden, but at least it stops you before you get to the fence.
Yeah, but I think the architect there has acknowledged that and is willing to rectify that, so, yep.
Any,
I just
Councillor
want
Quinte?
a little clarification. Are we making one half of this section residential and leaving the other section the same? Just want to clarify. Trying to read through this a couple, 3 times, and it didn't really jump out at me if that's what we're doing.
So, whoever staff wants to answer that, go ahead.
Sure. Sorry, the second story of this building is already residential use, 12 units, and main floor has 2 wings. One was a restaurant, and the other was proposed to be a restaurant 2 years ago. One restaurant is already operational now. The wing under the existing second floor where the residential apartments are or uses are, this is going to be 6 more units.
So the
the
commercial, the
commercial will be
goal is to get
separate.
rid of the commercial altogether at this property and eventually make it residential.
No, there will be a commercial
Well,
wing.
that's what I was trying to figure out.
The west side wing, which is a single-story structure, will remain a pizza bar and grill, and there's no internal connection with the building. So the other east side of the building will become residential.
Okay, that's what I thought, and I just wanted to clarify while we were all here. Thanks.
Do you have any comments, Shauna, or do you think it's been all addressed? Okay, I just want to make sure on the planning side there wasn't something missed, so, okay. Any, Michael, would you have a question?
Thank you. I'm in support of the proposal, and the resident made some very valid points, and my concern was also around the parking. I realize there's a need for housing, and that seems to be at the forefront, so everyone seems to be in a rush to amend things. But if we reduce only a couple apartments, we would meet that parking requirement. And I'm not suggesting we get rid of a bunch of the apartments, but even one or two would alleviate that parking issue, and they would be closer to what we need.
Okay. Any question or comment on that from planning?
Yeah, I think it's something that comes up quite a lot. Our parking standards are relatively high, I would say, in terms of the need, and we apply them across all kind of residential uses and commercial uses throughout the city. Increasingly, we are looking, and this committee's seen it before, where we are prepared to recommend and support applications that reduce parking that are within the urban core area, where there is more possibility, whether everybody's ready to use it or not. There is more possibility for walking, cycling, connecting through transit, that type of thing. So, yeah, I would say from an overall planning perspective, I'm more comfortable with slightly higher residential units in maximising the use of the building, even at the loss of a few parking stalls, rather than going the other way. You know, a long-term view, we shouldn't be planning for the future for the automobile. We should be planning for residences and for people. That's the kind of general principle.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
And I do appreciate that. One of the recommendations was if there wasn't enough parking to do some street parking. It was in the report, but my concern is when the winter months arrive, the street parking is no longer viable. So then the parking becomes an issue again.
Yeah, no, it's an issue of eventually the residents in any development that's like this that has reduced parking. I mean, it happens within our downtown core. There's no parking requirements. People have to manage themselves and their expectations around their vehicle ownership and their vehicle use. I mean, it may be that certain residents within this have to make those decisions before they decide to move into this type of residence. That's a reasonable expectation, I think.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have anyone else who wishes to address this application at this time before I ask the committee to recommend for recommendation of the approval? Okay. Hearing none, committee, what's your wishes? We have a recommendation to approve, and I would entertain a motion or any other questions or comments. Moved by Councillor McHugh, a seconder. Sure. Ms. Simmons. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we now move along to item 7.5, staff report 23-120 PD, a zoning bylaw amendment application. The owner is Trenton Commercial Development. The agent is Fulton Planning and Design. The location is 17524 Highway 2. The file number is D09/M32/22. Dale, would you like to comment on this application, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, the purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the subject property from the corridor commercial zone to the corridor commercial exception 14 holding zone. The subject property was subject to provisional consent from the Committee of Adjustment as file number B33-23M and was granted provisional consent on October 12, 2023. The application for zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone a portion of the subject lands from the corridor commercial zone to the corridor commercial exception 14 holding zone to restrict future development on the proposed severed parcel until sufficient municipal services are available to support the future development of the site. The proposed application will only result in the rezoning of the proposed severed parcel. On the proposed retained lands, a commercial development is intended, consisting of 4 drive-through establishments and 3 separate commercial buildings with multiple commercial units. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the city's official plan, complies with the City of Quinte West Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, and as such, the application is recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in opposition or have general questions? Seeing none, I would ask the committee to consider the recommendation and entertain any questions or comments. I'll move it. Moved by Councillor Neal, second by Councillor Quinte. Councillor Neal has a question.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused the purpose of this rezoning. How would, through you to staff, how could they get a building permit on this site if the services weren't there to support the development? Like, I'm just trying to think why they need to do this.
Through the chair, yeah, so there's, through the Committee of Adjustment, there's an application to sever a portion of the property. The proposed severed parcel fronts onto Second Dug Hill Road. Currently, there aren't sufficient services to support development on that proposed parcel. So the holding symbol is essentially going to prevent development on that parcel until sufficient services exist. On the retained lands, there are sufficient services along Highway 2, which would support development there. But for the proposed severed parcel, there currently isn't enough services.
Okay. Any further questions? Councilor Kozovas.
Thank you. Just a comment. In the page 2 of the electronic version, it says they have yet to register. Does that mean the plan is just hypothetical with the, my reason for asking, sorry, I'll ask that first, is I would hopefully work with the developer and encourage them to make a hotel instead of their other proposition, because the city's in desperate need of hotels. Every time there's a tournament, we're overbooked, especially on the west end. We don't have anything, and we'll attract the people driving into the county. So it says yet to register. Again, I would just encourage them to follow that path.
Any comment in that regard? I know you can't guarantee anything, but
no, we certainly, I think, you know, properties like this, I mean, the committee has seen this as well, that particularly along the highway corridor, we've had lots of development proposals, some of which haven't gone past the concept stage. This one has had a number of different proposals on it, and they come and go. 1 minute it's a retirement residence, the next minute it's a hotel. So yeah, I think certainly the companies that manage these properties and their consultants are well aware of where the markets are. If they feel that the market's right for a hotel, they will be hot to trot on a hotel, I can assure you. Yeah.
okay. Mr. Brown?
Just to piggyback off that, I'm not so sure, would this site be ideal for hotel developers that tend to stick closer to the 401 corridor? I'm just not sure how appealing this would be to somebody trying to develop a hotel. It's my thought.
Not really my area of expertise, but you're right. I mean, I think traditionally I mean, it's an interesting question, because for a municipality the size of Quinte West, I think, yeah, you're probably right. The most hotels seem to cluster along the 401 corridor. But as a municipality grows and there are more reasons to stay within the municipality or within the town itself, because that's what's drawing people there, whether it's special events, whether it's the waterfront, whether it's, you know, yeah, stuff like that, parks, stuff going on, there's probably a greater need for, you see it in larger cities, there's a greater need for hotels off of the main thoroughfares, or the main connections, but more central to the town. So we're maybe not at that threshold yet, but I think at some point there's probably going to be more demand for hotels within the urban core. Yeah.
Any other questions regarding this? Okay, we have it regularly moved and seconded. We recommend approval of this application. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Unanimous. Okay. Your comments regarding the applications and staff reports have been recorded and will be forwarded to the members of council together with the minutes of this meeting. Council will make a decision to approve or refuse the stated application at the regularly scheduled council meeting of Wednesday, December the 1st, 2023. We now are into public input. Any public input? General questions? Present or? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now move on to presentations. We have none. Delegations? None. Decision items, none today, this evening. We have printed information, 12.1, A and B, zoning bylaw and official plan amendment application tracking, and item B, the building department report monthly for October 2023 and yearly from January to October 2023. Entertain a motion to receive or entertain any questions. Councillor McHugh, Ms. Simmons. Any questions regarding those two items? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Non-printed, we have none. Requests for information. Councillor Kozovas, Councillor McHugh, card.
I'm good.
Mayor? Go ahead.
I just noticed that it's maybe time we turned the heat on. I thought it was pretty hot earlier, but I see somebody going for a coat here, so.
Councilor Neal, comments or questions?
Apologize, I hadn't asked this earlier, but through you to Director Jardine, the number of new residential building permits year-to-date is 122. I'm wondering how that compares to the previous year. Is it substantially down? If you can't answer it, maybe the next meeting.
Oh, no, sorry, that's not in the same one. I think, I don't have the specific answer for you, but I think we checked it back a few weeks ago when I did that report to council. I think we're actually running consistent with last year, either up or down, but we'll get that number for you.
That'd be great, thank you.
Mr. Brown, any questions, comments? Ms. Forsyth? Ms. Simmons? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. We have no notice of motion that I have seen presented. The next regular meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December the 21st, 2023, just before Christmas. So we got a bit of a marathon going on here tonight. I thank our committee and I thank the staff and all the attendees for their input, and we appreciate it. Other than that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor McHugh, Councillor Card. Opposed, everyone? So, carried. Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.